Welcome to the Hotel Buy, brought to you by Beechwood Real Estate Advisors.
Explore the world of Canadian hotel investment with us. Learn about success strategies, discover how to overcome challenges, and hear from industry experts.
Whether you're a seasoned investor or a curious listener, the Hotel Buy is your ultimate guide to the latest trends, strategies, and stories shaping the landscape of hotel investments.
Now let's start the conversation. Hi, I'm Jennifer Galatly.
And I'm Sylvia Cutesy.
Welcome to our show today, The Hotel Buy.
We're very excited to welcome our guest, Bob Jackson with Vintage Hotels. Bob Jackson is the CEO and board director of Lais Hotel Properties Limited, which is the principal company behind Vintage Hotels. Vintage's collection of hotels includes 3 magnificent properties in Niagara-on-the-Lake, namely Prince of Wales, Pillar and Post, and Queen's Landing. The company also owns the Millcroft Inn and Spa in Caledon and Inn on the 20 in Jordan, Ontario, as well as a whole bunch of others that Bob will explain in a little bit. Bob's been in the role of CEO since 2009 and with the company since 2004 in various hotel management positions at several of Vintage properties around Niagara. Bob is currently responsible for the overall financial and operational performance of the business and their expansion plans, which include property acquisition and new development. Bob is a graduate of the University of Windsor, the Cornell Hotel School Professional Development Program, and is the recipient of an honorary Bachelor of Applied Business degree from Niagara College. He also previously served on various boards around the Niagara region and is a mentor for Big Brothers and Big Sisters of North and West Niagara. Welcome, Bob. Thanks so much for joining us today.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
Great. Your history and your CV really is astonishing. It's remarkable. The story and history of Vintage Hotels is one that I think a lot of people are interested in hearing about. And so I thought we could just start right from the beginning, which is really what was the inspiration for Vintage Hotels to jump in, especially in the boutique space back in 1997?
Sure, happy to. The CV just shows my age among other things. But if you look back to the late 90s, when this kind of all began, the theater, the Shaw Theater, Festival Theater had been running for some time. You saw the emergence of wineries and the emergence of restaurants and all these other kinds of attractions around Niagara-on-the-Lake specifically. The one thing that didn't really exist, there was hotels, but nothing that was really in the luxury space. So that really was the impetus to start, acquiring these properties, renovating these properties, and really up until we come present day. And the first property that the company actually acquired was the Pillar and Post around 94 and 95. And this is an old canning factory, and it went through many transformations, including a massive expansion of the spa, creation of a new wing. But that was really the start to it all. The second one was Queen's Landing, which was 96, followed by the Prince of Wales, which is 97. That one probably got made the biggest splash. It was kind of a very high price paid on a per key basis at the time, and then proceeded to close the hotel down for almost a year for a complete renovation before reopening in 99, I believe. So those 3 properties really were the core of kind of the creation. And then things kind of took off from there, adding additional properties, Moffat Inn in 04, in 08, the Millcroft Inn and Spa, as you mentioned, up in Caledon. That was 08 until 09, added the Parlour Inn in Stratford in 2013-14. Niagara's Finest Hotels is a group of smaller boutique hotels, also in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Harbour House, Charles Inn, Shaw Club. Those were added as a group in 2015. And then we added the Jordan properties, which is in on the 20 Jordan House, including this very kind of large retail concourse that includes Cape Spring Cellars, among other things that the group also acquired at that time. So it's really been kind of a long road to get us to where we are today. Looking forward to what's coming down the road.
That's amazing, and to hear, beyond the what I guess some of the properties that you're most known for, how you've grown over the years is amazing. It seems to have always sort of concentrated around the boutique space. So, what would you say distinguishes Vintage from maybe some of the conventionally branded hotels, as it relates to both the physical property itself and the guest experience?
Well, you know what? It really starts in philosophically. It's all about natural beauty, and which of course is why it kind of began here in Niagara on the Lake. We're not downtown city center hotels. There is a lot of natural beauty, being on the water, wide open spaces. Certainly, the size has something to do with it. One thing you'll notice with our properties, yes, we are a brand and we maintain a certain level in terms of the quality, but every hotel is quite different. So whether you're staying at the Millcroft or the Pillar and Post or the Prince of Wales, you are going to get that real attention to quality, but they're entirely different experiences in terms of the physical plant. The rooms are all different. Some, Prince of Wales is a hotel that's 160 odd years old, and you have Queen's Landing that's about 30 years old. So there's just really, I think, something built for everyone. And we have a very high repeat clientele, and you will have some that remain very loyal to a specific hotel and won't stay anywhere else. And then we have many guests who will travel back and forth and all around. And I think the other thing, kind of aside from the physical plant, is that one of our kind of taglines is exceptional individuals delivering exceptional experiences. And I think the size of what we are on an individual hotel space allows us to, pay attention to those really fine details. And as kind of the market evolves and people are looking for more experiential travel decisions when they're booking their hotels and stays, I think we're very well suited from that from a size perspective.
Yes, Bob, I think that we've seen that as well through the course of, certainly through COVID, the renaissance of sorts in the Ontario resort market, specifically people wanting a unique experience. But Vintage has been dominating that space for years. You sort of were definitely ahead of the curve. So, and not everyone is successful at it. So what do you think is different or unique about Vintage that has given it the ability to be successful and profitable in a resort and leisure space that often people struggle in?
Well, and there's a couple of things there. Number one, we diversified quite a long time ago in terms of the markets that we're in. Of course, yes, we are very heavy on the leisure side, but you'd be surprised at kind of the group corporate component to our hotels, certainly for the larger hotels, Pillar Post, Queen's Landing, etc. That's the type of business, the kind of breakdown in our market segments that allows it to be a high occupancy venues on an annual basis. If you look back, even 15, 20 years ago, that content wasn't as great on the group corporate side, which allows us to operate at a very high and profitable level. The other thing, and this is, we've always been supported by great ownership, and one of the luxuries that we have, and this is, again, it is kind of a philosophy, is that we make investments in things that aren't necessarily directly a profit center, but that they are serving to enhance the overall experience of people that are traveling to those destinations. And to give you an example, we've opened a variety of Asian restaurants here in Niagara on the Lake, a Japanese, a Chinese, a Thai. That's really to give people those unique dining options that they didn't have previously. The other thing we opened in the last few years, we had a large parcel of land across from the pillar and post, about 5-6 acres. And essentially what we did was created this huge garden park type space. And it was a substantial investment. And of course, we have a responsibility to monetize that as well. And it's great event space. We have an old barn and obvious outbuildings and wedding spaces and all these kind of things that allow us to do that. But it's not specifically a profit center. It's to support the effort of the hotels to provide those experiences. And this was accidental that, of course, this came to mean a great deal to us as we were kind of working through the pandemic, because those are the kind of spaces that people were looking for. And so it really, we have the luxury of being able to do projects like that because that's what our board supports, that's what ownership supports. And we'll continue to do that to build, these kind of wonderful spaces where people feel that they have all of these options, to enjoy their travel dollars and, of course, experience the hotels at the same time.
Great.
Yeah, I love that you're touching on the F&B offering. That leads into my question, actually. We're wondering, what are you seeing in terms of trends in Ontario and in the Canadian hotel industry in general, in terms of amenities that you have to offer at your properties? Obviously, F&B is something that's extremely important to you and a diverse offering of properties as well, like you've touched on. Can you add to that and let us know what other amenities might be important to guests today?
Yeah, obviously the culinary has always been very, very important to us. And that the Asian restaurants and other basically themed restaurants that we've been able to expand into has all been, it's a great deal of fun, along with, being able to kind of provide those amenities for our guests. Excuse me. There's a lot happening right now. And I think that I know from our perspective, technology is figuring into everything. And we're kind of in a unique space where, because it is such a personal experience, our guests aren't always looking for the greatest in technological advancements. They want that personal touch. So, for example, whether it be automated check-in and all those other kind of things. And we've tested the market a bit and are finding that that's not necessarily something that's expected from our guests, maybe on the corporate side. Somewhat, but it is offering those unique experiences that we can do on an individualized basis, to support the guest experience. And a lot of it's culinary, a lot of it's adventure, spa. We've always been very big in the spa market. I see more attractions around water. And those various things that we'll continue to pursue, because that's ultimately what people are looking for.
I personally am a patron and very big fan of your spa offering at your properties, Niagara. I can attest to that. They're fantastic. I really like what you touched on there regarding technology and automated check-in and still offering this special touch for guests when they arrive. That is so important, and it depends on the experience that the guest is looking for. But for me, that's my preference as well. And it's totally suited to your service offering with your portfolio. So I like that touch for sure.
It does make sorry, Jenny, and it does make a lot of sense too. And we play in a lot of different spaces. We have the text function, of course, which has really been, I think, wonderful in terms of operating hotels, because it's so immediate and gives you all those opportunities to market things, but also just to be of service. So those things, we'll continue to adopt where it makes sense, and for those areas where it may not be expected by our guests, we'll continue to watch. And if there's other things that we can get into, we will.
I like that because you're combining the best of both worlds in that regard for sure. It makes sense and it's a great approach. Now, in terms of your guest profile and spend, has that changed over the years, especially with the massive change in consumer trends that we've seen pre-COVID, through COVID, now post-COVID? What are you seeing in your group?
Well, it has changed quite a bit. If you're somewhat familiar with our hotels, this wouldn't probably surprise you, but we kind of skewed older on the demographic historically. But certainly in the last, COVID certainly had an impact on it, but it was happening prior to that. In that we're seeing a younger demographic, we're seeing more families. I always used to make a joke that the only kids you'll ever see in these hotels are my own, but you're actually seeing families a lot more than we have. And the flip side of that too is that spend is becoming increasingly stronger. People want to experience things, and they're not so hesitant to deny themselves. So all of these kind of, I don't even want to call them peripheral because they're kind of core to what we do, but be it, the spa, the dining, the winery tours, and all of those things that we do, people are more than happy to make that investment on their leisure time, and we're happy to accommodate any way we can.
I love the joke about the only kids you would see at the property would be your own, and that's no longer the case. People would want to come and enjoy like the wine, your property, the spa, and depending on age, bring their children with them to the spa. So that's become a good family outing now, I guess. So have you had to make changes operationally over the years to meet the changing guest demands and expectations? Like we've talked about amenities, but operationally, how are you executing differently with what the guest is expecting from your property?
Well, and there's a couple things I mentioned, how technology can really assist in that area, and we're certainly going to dive into that. But more so just in terms of how you handle the whole booking process. And we, be it at the property level through central reservations, it's kind of a concierge. We call them our kind of service first ambassadors, but people that are ready to engage guests to design that personal experience. It's really, part of the core of what we do. And that's something that has really kind of, transformed over the last number of years. And we see that getting even more personal as we get further down the way. But, operationally, it's, we've, like many in the industry and really the economy at large, we've struggled on the labor front, but we see that coming back. But through it, I think what we've also experienced is that more of our team members become multitaskers. So we kind of redesign the way jobs are done so that you're able to, for example, get rooms done more efficiently, quicker, so that people can get in, be it a combination of front desk versus concierge service and how that interacts with the whole reservation process. I think that, jobs become a little more, or I guess a little less rigid in terms of what people's primary responsibilities are. It's kind of, we're all kind of pulling towards the same goal of servicing the guests. And, I think that's something that's really welcome in the industry, and certainly it's taken on by our team members.
I think you found a good solve to a tricky problem when it comes to labor and the fluctuations in labor that we've seen and the amount of people available to work. Touching on efficiencies and changing roles and streamlining things, it makes sense to solve for it that way for sure.
Yeah, and also investments to make, right? Like that's one of the things that guests won't see on the technology side, but there's certainly, call it back of house investments that the company can make towards improving those processes. And I'll give you an example of something that we're dealing with right now. But we're looking to undertake a production kitchen. So this would be a central kind of storage / kitchen facility that supplies all of our F&B outlets, that does all the prep, the butchering, the whatever else. But really the aim of it is to have the chefs be able to focus on that restaurant experience, and at the same time kind of freeing up space at the restaurant kitchen level for them to really go deep on the creative side. And we have, probably, depending on location, probably 25 outlets that we'd be supplying on a daily basis. So this is where technology comes in, and all the latest and greatest kind of equipment you can find on the kitchen side that just allows you to be more efficient than we have historically.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you touched on the parts of innovation and technology that you can take advantage of, and then back to your point earlier that there's just parts that technology just can't replace. The personal touch, etc. And for those tuning in just now, we are speaking with Bob Jackson with Vintage Hotels. Bob, the other part to maybe some of the trends that we're seeing in the space is around Airbnb, short-term vacation rentals. Has that impacted your properties, the Niagara region in general? How have you seen that play out for you and your operation?
Well, it certainly has an impact. Niagara on the Lake specifically has always had a high number of traditional B&Bs, and of course Airbnbs have moved into that space as well. I'm of the opinion that it's less impactful on us than it is on those kind of traditional B&Bs, only because I think in general people that want the hotel experience are not booking Airbnbs. But of course, it becomes a question of overall inventory, and I know, from our perspective, we just want to see a level playing field. We all pay commercial taxes, being operating businesses and that. So there's a bit of different rules on that side that I don't think every community has quite figured out yet. Some are in front of others. But from a traditional sense, I don't think we're directly competing with them other than kind of that draw on the overall inventory of a destination.
And are you seeing any other disruptors in the space that you guys are paying attention to?
Well, we already kind of touched on certainly that the labor space, the labor environment has been a big factor, although settling down a bit. The other side of it too, this is something certainly related to the pandemic, is how the corporate business is reacting to the whole thing, and the virtual versus live meetings. Excuse me. We have not seen, although our overall rebound has been quite strong, very robust. The corporate side of the business is a little bit fickle still. I don't think that we've quite figured it out. And I think industry has to figure it out as well. But we are certainly seeing a migration towards kind of hybrid in-person versus online meetings. And we're good with that. We're certainly well equipped to deal with that part of it too. And hopefully that market starts settling down over the next year or two. We suspect that it will. But that's one of those big disruptors to it is just how the industry in general settles down with that segment of the business.
Right. Yeah, we are starting to see similar trends, with other properties, other operators, where the smaller groups, it's the meetings and groups are coming back, but maybe it looks a little different. It's all about adaptability and finding ways to just continue to cater to your guests. So I'm sure Vintage is all over it.
Yeah, and we have to be. And we sell vertically, meaning that it's all very industry specific, be it pharmaceutical, financial, manufacturing, etc. And so, part of that design is to be really kind of plugged into specific industries and understanding what their needs are. And hopefully that puts us in a good position, once those kind of objectives and hybrids, meetings, etc., start to settle down a little bit.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked about your portfolio, its positioning, amenities, service offering, technology. We've covered quite a bit. But what every hotel owner wants to know right now is your feedback on financing. What are you seeing for your group in terms of putting a deal together, financing a new deal, refinancing? What's the landscape like right now from your perspective?
Well, I mean, we're impacted like everybody else has. I would say that, and we're working on a few different projects right now from an expansion perspective, both out in Jordan, up in Caledon, and a couple locally in Niagara on the Lake. And we're still proceeding with those things, but there's kind of no rush to get into the construction part of it, because we suspect, like many others, like that's interest rates are going to settle down a little bit and we'll move forward. The change in our industry happened actually many years ago when the kind of the larger institutions, the larger banks, were less and less involved in the hotel space. And we still deal with major banks as well, but we also have moved to the more regional model, which has its advantages in terms of having that kind of personal connection. But we're not overly concerned with the market, and hopefully, along with the external expansion and addition of facilities and rooms and restaurants and all that, we do look to be more back in the acquisition space, a year or two down the road when things settle down a little bit.
Okay, so you've actually somewhat answered my next question, which is regarding your growth plans. So you are looking at potential acquisitions on a go-forward basis and expansion. Can you touch just a little bit more on what your expansion is going to include, and maybe what kind of acquisitions? Are they complementary? Are they similar? Positioned differently? What is your overall strategy?
Well, last one first. We geographically, we tend to look at things that are going to provide the greatest synergies to our group. So location-wise, it makes more sense if we can be in clusters, as we kind of have with Stratford, Caledon, and if we could create a little triangle up there. Of course, it has to fit with what we do. But from an expansion standpoint, that all makes a great deal of sense. Internally, we're meeting, and it's a kind of a good position to be in terms of expanding our room complement, which we'll do both in Jordan and Millcroft, and that's really been pushed by demand. We're running, especially at the Millcroft, very high occupancy levels that really warranted an expansion of some kind. Same with Jordan. We actually have I would call an overabundance of meeting space out there and not the bedrooms to support it. And Jordan and Lincoln Township in general is kind of underserved on the hotel room side. So we certainly see an opportunity to move in on that one as well. But we're always open to opportunities. Things right now are a little bit quieter than we would normally see that, but we expect that to correct itself. Hopefully short order, but certainly next year or two.
Great.
We think the same, Bob, that there'll be continued opportunities coming this year and into next. So stay tuned for all of that. And we're very much looking forward to seeing what Vintage does next. All the best to you and your team for a successful year ahead. And really appreciate your time today. I think people have learned a lot, and certainly we have. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, it's been great to be with you. Thank you very much.
To learn more about the Hotel Buy and Beechwood Real Estate Advisors, please visit beechwoodadvisory.com. That's BEECHWOOD advisory.com.